দেখতে পাচ্ছেন আমাদের, শুনতে পাচ্ছেন?
Yes, 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 Manos. I can see some people. আপনার screen. Oh, এটা কালিকট ভার্চুয়াল, এটা কার?
এটা আমাদেরই, এটা আমাদের ইউটিউব চ্যানেলটা।
ও আচ্ছা আচ্ছা, ইনোভেশন হাব দেখতে পাচ্ছি।
হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে, অসুবিধা নেই, এক এক করে আসছি, আমরা একটু ওয়েট করি।
আচ্ছা, কখন আমি ওই প্রেজেন্টেশনটা স্টার্ট করব? একটু দু একটা কথা বলার পরে স্টার্ট করব।
হ্যাঁ, আমি আপনাকে ইনভাইট করব।
ঠিক আছে ঠিক আছে।
হ্যাঁ, আপনি একটু অনলাইন থাকুন, লোকজন আসছে, এখন ঢুকছে আর কি।
ঠিক আছে ঠিক আছে,
ঢুকেনি,
সাউন্ডটা বন্ধ করে রাখছি।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে।
বাড়ির পোশাক পরে আছি বলে কোনো অসুবিধা হবে না তো?
না না,
ঠিক আছে।
পার্থক্য হচ্ছে আপনাদের ওখানে শীত আর আমাদের এখানে 6 পাখা চালাতে হচ্ছে।
এখানে তো 10, আজকে 10 ডিগ্রি। হ্যাঁ,
কলকাতায় বরফ পড়বে নাকি?
বরফ পড়বে কিনা তো, আমার ছোটবেলায় কলকাতায় আমি 8 ডিগ্রিও দেখেছি। যাই হোক আর বরফ না হলে এবার ঠান্ডাটা একটু বেশি দিন চলবে যা বলছে আর কি।
সে ভালো, তাতে যদি ভোট একটু ঠান্ডা হয়।
ভোট ঠান্ডা হওয়ার কোনো লক্ষণ নেই।
আমাদের এখানে সবসময় 34, 35 থেকে 37।
আমি জানি, আমি তো কন্যাকুমারী গেছি বেশ কয়েকবার, ওখানে তো 25শে ডিসেম্বর গিয়েও আমি দরদর করে ঘামছিলাম।
হ্যাঁ সেই, আমাদের একটু ভুল হয়েছে, আমরা এই শনিবার দুপুর বেলাটা নেওয়াটা ঠিক হয়নি আর কি।
না, আমার এমনি কোনো অসুবিধা নেই, আমি লাঞ্চ ফাঞ্চ করে নিয়েছি একটু তাড়াতাড়ি।
সেটা আপনি তো করে নিয়েছেন, কিন্তু বাকিদেরও আমরা ডাকাডাকি অনেক করছি।
ও এখন সবাই খেতে বসেছে অ্যাকচুয়ালি।
হ্যাঁ, সেইটা একটা সমস্যা হয়ে গেছে, আমাদের একটু ভুল হয়েছে, আমাদের আরেকটু লেট করে করা উচিত ছিল বিকেলের দিকে।
হ্যাঁ, 3টে থেকে 4টে হলে ঠিক ছিল।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, সেইটা একটা সমস্যা। তাও ফোন টোন করছে দু একজন।
ঠিক আছে, যে কজন থাকবে থাকবে। এমনি আর কজন, এই কজনই তো সবই আপনার সেন্টারেরই লোক তো দেখছি।
না না, আমরা আমাদের ওই সেন্টারে আরো আমাদের বাইরের লোকেরা বসে আছে আর কি, ওখান থেকে কানেক্ট করা।
ওরা ডাইরেক্টলি দেখছে?
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা।
আর আমাদের ইউটিউব চ্যানেলেও দেয়া আছে, ফেসবুক লাইভেও দেয়া আছে, সেখানেও অনেকে লগ ইন আছে। মানে তারা ডাইরেক্টলি মিটিংটায় ঢুকছে না, তারা সব বাইরে থেকে দেখছে,
বাইরে থেকে দেখছে। ঠিক আছে।
আমি তো একটু আগে মেসেজ পেলাম, মিস্টার কেজি কুমার বলেছেন উনি আসবেন।
আচ্ছা,
বলেছেন আমি শ্যামল বাবুর লেকচার শুনতে জয়েন ইন করবো, আমাকে লিংক পাঠাও।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা।
আমি লিংক পাঠিয়ে দিয়েছি ওনাকে, এখনো অবধি
আমার লেকচার খুব একটা ভালো হবে না, যদিও মানে পুরোটাই থিওরিটিক্যাল আর কি। এটা আবার কে জয়েন করছে?
আরেকজন জয়েন করছে, আমাদের আরেকটা ইউনিট থেকে।
ও আচ্ছা আচ্ছা। যাই হোক, জয়েন করছে আস্তে আস্তে অনেকে।
হ্যাঁ করছে, একটুখানি ওয়েট করি, খানিকটা একটু দেরিতে।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, আমার অসুবিধা নেই, 2:10-এও স্টার্ট করতে পারে।
হ্যাঁ,
যাই হোক, এখন আমার লেকচার একটু থিওরিটিক্যাল টাইপেরই আর কি, জানি না কজনের পছন্দ হবে। যদিও আমি বেশি মানে থিওরির নামধাম বেশি বলিনি আর কি, সোজা ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজে রাখার চেষ্টা করেছি।
না, আজকে নটরাজ তো ভীষণ ফিলোসফিক্যাল এবং থিওরিটিক্যাল লেকচার দিয়েছে,
সবসময় ওরকম।
কিন্তু নটরাজ কোনো প্রেজেন্টেশন দেয়নি। না,
না, আমার ব্যাপারটা যে মুশকিল, যে প্রেজেন্টেশনটা না দিলে লোকে ঠিক বুঝতে পারবে না আমি কি।
না না, সেটা দেয়াই
একটু অসুবিধা।
হয়তো সব
কিন্তু
আসছে।
আপনার
হ্যাঁ, আপনি শুনতে পাচ্ছেন তো?
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ
ঠিক আছে ঠিক আছে, আর একটু ওয়েট করি, তারপর চালু করবো।
হ্যাঁ, 2:10 চালু করুন।
ঠিক আছে।
আমাকে দেখা যাচ্ছে?
হ্যাঁ, আপনি ইচ্ছা করলে ভিডিও অফ করে রাখতে পারেন।
না না, দেখা যাক, অসুবিধা কিছু নেই।
দেখা যাচ্ছে দেখা যাচ্ছে
ঠিক আছে।
দেখা যাচ্ছে।
কেজি কুমারকে দেখছি না তো।
না, আমাকে মেসেজ দিয়েছেন, এখনো আসেননি। পুরকায় দেরি করছে হয়তো। পুরকায় দেরি করছে হয়তো দিতে।
তাই হবে হয়তো।
আমি তো আইকেএম কেও ডেকেছিলাম, ডিজি কেও।
আমার প্রেজেন্টেশনটা তো খুলে রাখতে হবে না?
না, তার কোনো মানে নেই। আপনি
না না,
একবার
নালে পাওয়া যাবে না, না না খুললে পাওয়া যাবে না। দেখছি দেখছি।
একবার চেক করে দেখেন।
হ্যাঁ দেখলাম, হচ্ছে, আসেনি। দেখছি, দাঁড়া।
আপনি প্রথমে খুলে রাখুন, তারপর ডান দিক থেকে প্রেজেন্ট নাও করে।
হ্যাঁ দেখছি, সেটাই দেখছি। হ্যাঁ, এবার এসছে।
এবার একবার প্রেজেন্ট নাও করে চেক করে নিন।
হ্যাঁ, প্রেজেন্ট আসছে, মানে ক্লিক করলে আসবে, দেখা যাচ্ছে জিনিসটা।
ঠিক আছে। আমি তো ডিজি কেও ডেকেছিলাম, আইকেএম কে ডেকেছিলাম, কিন্তু তারা কেউ বলতে রাজি হলেন না।
रामस्वरूप जॉइन করেছে।
হ্যাঁ,
रामस्वरूप जी, कैसे हैं आप?
नमस्ते सर, कैसे हैं
नमस्ते।
आप?
हाँ, मैं चलता है मेरा।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू।
সুরেশ জয়েন করেছে গৌহাটি থেকে।
কই দেখতে পাচ্ছি না তো।
হ্যাঁ, দেখুন, সুরেশ কুমার সোনি আছে।
अच्छा, सुरेश, हाउ आर यू?
फाइन सर।
अच्छा, क्या रामस्वरूप जी पालमपुर में स्नोफॉल नहीं हो रहा है? सुनते पाच्छे ना नाकि?
हुआ है सर, बीच बीच में होता है।
बीच बीच में होता है?
जी सर, जी सर।
अच्छा अच्छा
अभी 7-8 दिन पहले भी हुआ था,
अच्छा
लेकिन प्रॉपर पालमपुर में नहीं होता सर। यहाँ से 5-7 किलोमीटर दूर यहाँ पहाड़ी
अच्छा
है,
अच्छा
उस पे रहता है।
एक दिन कलेक्ट करके हमारे लिए थोड़ा भेज देना।
जी सर, जी सर।
या फिर हो सकता है तो जूम कॉन्फ्रेंस मीटिंग करके 2-4 डिग्री ठंड भेज देना।
ठीक है सर, आप आइए सर, वेलकम है।
अच्छा।
अच्छा लगेगा सर।
মানুষ আমাকে বলবেন কখন স্টার্ট করব।
হ্যাঁ, 5 হয়েছে, আর 5 মিনিট দেখি।
ঠিক আছে, 3 এখন, 2:03 দেখাচ্ছে।
হ্যাঁ, ওই let us wait for some more time. Let
Yes,
us
yes.
allow some more people to join, and then we'll go for it.
The problem with PPT is that the font size will see very small. So I will read one by one and then I will try to explain as much as possible. In fact, yesterday there was a meeting regarding the new MS course. Then one director told me, please wait for some time, let me bring my microscope.
Is it Sharmaji?
Yes.
The very statement indicates who is the person behind it.
सिग्नेचर
Yes.
कमेंट।
Yeah.
सर नए सिरे से एमएस कोर्स शुरू कर रहे हैं सर?
नया एमएस कोर्स में आप लोग को फिर ये करना, एडमिशन लेना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि
दोबारा
हम लोग जो एसेस किया है, 2 लोग ज्वाइन किया, पास करके किया है, कुछ सीखा नहीं, दोबारा सिखाना पड़ेगा उनको।
जी सर, फिर डिग्री एमटेक की होगी सर, पीएचडी।
लेकिन इस बार पैसा आपको खुद भरना पड़ेगा, ऑफिस पैसा नहीं देगा।
ये तो मुश्किल है सर।
और वो TOEFL और IELTS का कंडीशन रहता है क्या? TOEFL और IELTS का कंडीशन है क्या?
नहीं, दैट इज रिमूव्ड।
हाँ, क्योंकि उसमें तो पैसा बहुत लगता है। मैं पूछ रहा था तो बोला कि हाँ, वो एग्जाम देने के लिए बहुत पैसा लग चाहिए, 13-14 हजार रुपया देना पड़ता है एग्जाम देने के लिए।
Yes, it is like that. And the center is not all everywhere, na, you have to come to big cities.
Yes.
बीच में सर पीएचडी शुरू करने का बता रहे थे ना सर, साइंस कम्युनिकेशन में।
करिए ना आप लोग, हम लोग को तो रिटायरमेंट का टाइम आ गया, आप लोग पीएचडी करिए ना, हम देखेंगे।
सर आप करवा के जाइए सर।
मेरा क्वालिफिकेशन है कहाँ?
क्वालिफिकेशन आपकी क्या कम है सर? आपकी तो है सर क्वालिफिकेशन। हिस्ट्री ऑफ साइंस में आप करवा दीजिए सर पीएचडी।
आज देखिए, आज मेरा लेक्चर तो सुनिए।
सन्नाल साहब कुछ दिन पहले कह रहे थे कि एमएस कोर्स फिर से चालू होगा, लेकिन मेरा रहते हुए नहीं। मेरा सोच है कि पीएचडी भी शायद चालू होगा, लेकिन एनसीएसएम रहते हुए नहीं।
ऐसी बदुएं मत दीजिए सर। এনসিএসএম কিতনে
মানুষ কজন জয়েন করলো এখন অবধি?
14
স্যার।
ঠিক, দেখা যাক, 2:10 স্টার্ট করে দেবো, বুঝছেন?
হ্যাঁ, we will start in another 2-3 minutes, just wait a little more and then we'll start.
ঠিক আছে, ঠিক আছে।
স্লাইডটা শেয়ার করে রাখুন। Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the virtual platform of Regional Science Center and Planetarium, Calicut. We are going through with our celebration of the 24th anniversary program. And this is actually a build up to the 25th anniversary program that is likely to come on 30th January 2022. Now, we are very, very happy, honored, and privileged to have with us one of the senior most curators of National Council of Science Museums, Mr. Indranil Sannal. And today we are expecting to hear from him about his ideas on the learning in science museums. Mr. Sannal is a curator at National Council of Science Museums, Kolkata, and at present is posted at its headquarters. So Sannal did his masters from the University of Calcutta and MS in Science Communication from BITS Pilani. He joined NCSM in 1991 and worked in several NCSM units as curator and project coordinator. But apart from that, to me, his biggest identity is known to be one of the most profoundly pedagogic persons in NCSM. His depth of knowledge in various subjects and interests and enthusiasms, not only in science, his basic discipline, physics. He is also interested beyond that in history of science, in various other aspects. In general, I would say that knowledge is a thing that comes very naturally to him. He has undertaken several projects of national and international importance. He did Heritage Gallery, he did traveling exhibitions in Indian Women in Science, Acharya Pichide exhibition, Illusion, Wonderful Worlds of Crystals, Gandhi and Science, 100 Years of Indian Cinema. He was also very, very important curator of the National Museum of Indian Cinema and Sardar Patel Uniting India exhibition. He has also taught history of science and science learning in non-formal settings or MS course that was being run by NCSM. And today, we also welcome you all to this program, all the viewers, and I hand it over to Mr. Sannal for his deliberation. Thank you very much, sir. Welcome to our channel.
Thank you, Mr. Bakchi. Let me tell a few words about this, about the presentation. This topic is learning in science museums. So we will discuss how learning in science museums is different from the formal learning, and what are its characteristics, and what are the different theories in learning in science museums, and how they are applied in science museums. Some of the listeners or viewers who is participating in today's discussion are aware of most of these things. But okay, this is another opportunity for me and for the viewers also to interact again on the various features of science museums learning. But many of us work in science museum for many years. So let us have some deliberations about the existing theories, and then it will also give us some ideas how we can apply these theories in our day-to-day professional work. So let me start my presentation. There is a PowerPoint presentation. Naturally, sometimes you will find it difficult to read because of the font size, but I will read out everything. And you are always welcome to interrupt me and ask any question. So let me start. I will ask, can everybody see this? Can everybody see this?
Not yet, not yet.
नहीं sir.
Not yet. Why not yet? Now?
No.
नहीं sir.
What happened? It shows an error has occurred when screen sharing. Let me start, try once again. It's not coming. So what to do?
I suggest you log out once and log in once again. That may solve the problem.
Okay. No, it's not yet coming.
In that case, you can do one thing. You please mail the presentation to us. We will load it from here and operate from here as you suggest.
That is possible. But what is the problem? Let me just try once again. Let me close it and start it. Yes, now it is coming. Is it visible now?
Yeah. It's coming.
It's visible, no?
It's visible.
Okay.
You can make it full screen, then it will be bigger.
Let me try. Is it visible?
It is visible.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Now, the topic of today's presentation is, as you can see, that science learning in science museums. Now, we start like this, that what is the life in 21st century? So we live in a learning society. Learning society means a knowledge-based society. And we learn 24/7/52. -8/52 is the sleeping time. So the time when you remain awake, you continuously learn from different sources. So it is very different from the prehistoric era, or maybe 100 years or 200 years, people were not like that. So now we continuously learn from different sources, that you can understand from the next slide. Now, learning, and particularly science learning, is rapidly becoming integral to all aspects of life, work or leisure. Even leisure is also related to learning nowadays, with the boundaries becoming ever more blurred. Let us see these two photographs. In the left side, you can see the child is not interested about the toy cars. He is more interested about the tab.
Sir, the slide has not changed.
Slide has not changed.
No.
Has it changed?
No.
I think I have to full screen will.
Yeah, now it is okay. Life in 21st century. Now it is showing that one. Yeah, now it is. Now it is okay. Photographs are there. Yeah, fine.
Achha, did you see the previous slide?
No, it was not shown. It went away very fast.
Achha, let me just repeat it. So learning is 24/7/52 -8/52. The 8 of supposing that you sleep for 8 hours, and it is rapidly becoming integral to all aspects of life, work and leisure, and the boundaries are blurred. So that is what I mean to say. Now, these two photographs, you can see that in the left side, the child is not interested about the toy cars. He is more interested about the tab. This is the real picture of today. And in the right side, that he can explore a lot of things in the tab. Means this knowledge has already come even to the level of a child. Now, when do we learn? So the research shows that the children spend 75% to 80% of their waking hours outside of school. So this calculation I can simply explain to you also. For example, in a day, if a child sleeps for 8 hours, then 16 hours remains. Now 4 to 5 hours in the school, So it is about 1/3 in the school. So 67% in a day outside the school for the waking hours. Now you count add Saturday, Sunday, other holidays and vacations, it goes to 75 to 85% of their waking hours outside the school. Now, if you count for the whole life of a lifetime of a person, less than 3% of our time is spent participating in formal education. And therefore, most of what we learn outside the formal educational institutions. So is it clear how we came to the figure? Is it clear how we came to the figure?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, educationists, they have identified three kinds of learnings. One is informal, one is formal and non-formal. Now, what is informal? Informal means what we learn from our life. So we are talking to the people, we are seeing television, we are reading newspaper, we are overhearing what people on the street are talking about. You learn from your parents, grandparents. So this is informal. So other one is formal, what we learn from the school, colleges, universities, or other kinds of such institutions during your professional training, all these things. This is formal. Another is non-formal. Now, what is non-formal? Non-formal, I will come to the next one. Now, there is one difference of what we study in India and what is the American system. Sometimes in the American system, they do not distinguish between informal and non-formal, but in India, we distinguish between informal and non-formal. Now, what is non-formal? Non-formal is what you learn from museums, general museums or art museums, archaeological museums, from science museums and science centers, from planetariums, from zoos and aquariums, from botanical gardens, and from such institutions. This is not your lifelong learning. It is just when you visit these things, you learn. But that learning remains with you. That is a different things. Now, what are the characteristics of non-formal learning? Here, like the formal learning institution, the principal objective is learning, but it is not structured. There is no syllabus, there is no curriculum, and there is no exam, there is no test or evaluation. Then it is open to all, means it is not restricted to a group of students or some eligible students. It is not like that. Even a child can come to an institution of non-formal learning. An old man, the child's father, the child's grandfather, they can also come to the science centers or science museums or planetariums or zoos. So it is open to all. Now, the other one is that because there is no syllabus or curriculum, the learner has control over his content and pace. Means he can slowly go through the exhibits or in the zoos, the cages of the animals or this thing. And he can choose his content because there is no fixed syllabus on which he has to appear for the exam. So he has the control over the content and also the pace. And all these things are summarized in a terminology called free choice learning. So you can choose what you will learn. You can choose how you will learn, at what pace, when you will learn, where you will learn. So everything is your free choice. So it is nowadays called free choice learning. We'll come to about the free choice learning later on. Now, like formal education, formal learning, the non-formal learning also has its strength and weakness. So what are the strengths? First thing is the no fear of exam. This is very important because many students in the schools or colleges or universities, I'm not talking about university, particularly in school, the children always suffer from fear of exam, the fear of failing, fear of not performing well in the exam. So here that fear is not there. Then it is also cheaper than formal learning. Nowadays, you know, the cost of education. There is no restriction. We have already told that it is open to all. It is truly democratic. Then you have variety of experience. In formal educational institution, it is basically lecture based or lab based. But here you have variety of experience. You have exhibits, you have shows, you have science demonstration lectures, you have science park, you have planetarium show, lot of other things. In zoo, if you go to zoo, Zoos also nowadays they are conducting other programs for the visitors. So variety of experience is there. Then there are scopes for learning through interaction, objects, exhibits. So it is called concrete learning. Means it is not learning from books or notes or from PowerPoint presentations and all these things. It's basically object-based, interaction-based, exhibit-based. So this is called concrete learning. Then there is social interaction. In a classroom situation, there is hardly any scope for interaction between students. Sometimes the teachers interact with the students, but in a science center setting or a science museum setting, any museum setting, zoo setting, one visitor can interact with other visitors, children can interact with the adults, one group can interact with the other group. So they exchange knowledge, they collectively, they understand the things. So that scope for social interaction is there. Then it motivates for further learning. It is a motivational experience. Everybody who has visited these non-formal science learning institutions, they feel motivated. And sometimes the visitors go back home with a life-changing memories. So these are the strength of museum learning or science center learning, whatever you say. What are the weakness? There are huge variety and body of prior knowledge, skills, motivations required. So for understanding the things, you need some kind of prior knowledge. So, and that is very vast because you have different kinds of exhibits, you have different kinds of shows. Another problem is that mostly unmediated by educators. We have in NCSM units and other science museums, or even in other museums also, science educators are there, but we always prefer self-learning by the visitors because that has another kind of advantage. But sometimes the mediation is also required. But in museum setting, science museum setting, it is mostly unmediated by educators. Then available time is also very brief. In schools and colleges, you spend many years for learning. So your learning can build up step by step. Here, that scope is not there. Then another problem is that impact or learning outcome not guaranteed. Some people go back with life-changing memories, but it is not guaranteed also. It is not guaranteed in formal education institutions also, but chances are higher there. But here chances are lower. Now, what are the characteristics of learning in science museums? We have talked about the this learning so many times we have talked. So what are the characteristics of learning in science museums? How it is different from learning in formal education institution? So what I have discussed, it is summarized in this slide, that learning in science museums is all about the real thing. It is basically object-based learning. Then variety of activity and content, interactivity, immersive experience, matching of experience to personal interest. So you can learn you can just pick up the experience of your personal interest, which is not that much available in formal institutions. Then it is vivid, relevant, changing memories. It is a summary of the last few slides which we have discussed. Now, what is learning? If we go to what is learning, so there are many definitions of learning, but this is the most common learning given by one educationist called Mikulus. So it says like this, that learning is a relatively permanent change in behavior. So learning makes your behavior permanently change. So unless means you cannot learn something for 5 minutes and forget. So that is not learning. It happens to many of us that we read so many things in the schools and colleges and universities, and after passing out we simply forget. That means we did not learn them. We simply memorize them for passing the exam. So that is not learning. Learning is a relatively permanent change in behavior that occurs as a result of practice. So this is important. Result of practice. This permanent change will not come in one day. It needs it is a continuous process. You have to practice it. You have to cultivate this. Then only it will make a permanent change in behavior in you. Now we are discussing here some, can you see the slides clearly? Can you see the slides clearly?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now here are some of the important characteristics of learning after seeing the definition of learning. So these are important in the Science Museum context. So as I read out, you can just understand how these are important in Science Museum context. This learning is multiple: verbal, conceptual, perceptual, cognitive, psychomotor, skill learning, also affective, emotional, problem solving. So all these learning opportunities are available in science museums, which is not available in formal institution. Then learning is contingent upon experience. An individual learns substantially through his experience. We always call we always say that in a science museum we offer experience-based learning. So learning, the theory also says that learning is contingent upon experience. Then learning depends upon interest. So because the science museums have various kinds of exhibits, various different galleries of different themes, different kinds of shows, so people can choose the exhibit or show or any program of their interest. So learning depends on interest. So if somebody picks up the topic of his or her interest, then learning, there is a guarantee that there will be effective learning. Now, motivation is a key component in learning. Now, science, as we have said, that science museum motivates people because there are some, the atmosphere is such that because there is no hard and fast syllabus, there is no fear of exam and all these things, and there is a free choice of learning. So it motivates further learning. It is essential for learning. Motivation is essential for learning. Now, learning is purposeful and goal-oriented. The learner does not learn effectively if there is no purpose or goal of learning. Here is a problem in the science museums. Now, if the visitor just comes for leisure or just for spending some time, there is no guarantee that there will be learning. Another is that learning is an active process. It's a self-activity. One cannot learn passively. This is very true about science museums. Most of the active exhibits are either hands-on or self-operating kind of thing. So by actively operating the exhibits, one can learn better. Then learning is individual, means ability of learning. So learn at the same pace, effectiveness. So it varies from So in a science museum, we keep different kinds of exhibit at different levels, different kind of themes, different shows, so that it caters to different kind of people. Then learning is the result of interaction. This is very true about Science Center. Learning is creative. Learning is a creative synthesis of knowledge and experience. So Science Museum also offers knowledge as well as experience. So it promotes, we promote creativity in Science Center. Then learning depends on prior knowledge. This is a problem again in Science Center, that if you come with a completely blank mind without a prior knowledge, so it is very unlikely that your learning generate some interest. You can generate some motivation for learning in the future, but some kind of prior knowledge is required. And that is why we have to choose. For suppose we are developing one gallery or we are developing one show or one temporary exhibition. So we have to think about what is the target group. Accordingly, we have to develop the gallery or exhibition. There cannot be anything which is targeted to all visitors. So there is a term called general public. Actually, there is nothing called general public. Everything should be targeted to a group. The group which is supposed to have some kind of prior knowledge to understand this gallery or exhibition or any kind of show. Then it takes time to learn. Again, that in the slide where we have talked about the drawbacks of non-formal learning, that because the visitors spend maybe 1 day or 2 day in a science museum or a planetarium or a zoo. So they do not spend much time in a whole year or in their whole life, but it takes time to learn. That is why we call for repeat visit. Repeat visit is very important. So maybe the first visit will generate some interest and motivation that will motivate you to come again. Then you learn something, then you get more motivation, you come once again. Important. Then learning is in visitor, or you expect that in the first visit, within 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 1 hour in a gallery, the visitor will learn everything. So learning is incremental. Learning occurs bit by bit. Now we will discuss about some of the influential thinkers about the learning theory, whose theories are extensively applied in science centers and science museums. The first one is Jean Piaget. He is basically a biologist of Switzerland. So he did pioneering work on how with the growth of age people learn. Then John Dewey. John Dewey is an American educationist. He is famous for his pragmatic theory of education. Lev Vygotsky. Lev Vygotsky is a Russian. He is famous for he was a Russian school teacher of 1935 and 1940. His works, very important work, was actually lost until it was rediscovered during 1960s. So he is known for his theory of socio-cultural learning. And then Jerome Bruner. Jerome Bruner is he is also an American educationist and psychologist. He gave a theory of scaffolding. And then finally J.P. Gilford. He is known for his theory of intelligence and creativity. We'll discuss one by one very shortly and how they are applied in science museum context. Now, Jean Piaget, he gave 4 factors underlying intellectual development. One is the maturation, physical and neurological development. Means your learning will mature, learning will come as you physically and neurologically develop. So maturation is important. Then physical, direct apprehension of the physical world, and logico-mathematical and logico-mathematical. Means as you mature, you first start with the physical object. A child first start with the toys, and gradually from the his acquaintance with the toys, he will start learning something, and as he matures, is gradually in him the logico-mathematical experience, a logico-mathematical ability develops. Generally, it is given by Piaget that before the age of 11, you cannot expect a child to think very logically and mathematically. So it is important, it is an important lesson for us. Suppose we are developing one children's gallery, so we should not, and we are expecting that children of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 will come there. So we should not give any kind of puzzles or these things which needs a lot of complicated logical and mathematical thinking. Of course, this 11 years is an average. It may have in some children, it may come at the age of 10 or 9, and it may be a little bit deferred in some of the children. So 11 is the average age. So when we develop a children's gallery, or when we are developing an exhibit for the children, we should think about this thing, this Piaget's theory. Then Piaget told the social transmission is very important. Schooling and learning from others, this is very important from the point of view of learning. And then equilibrium, integration of these influences to achieve an adaptive balance with the environment. So maturation is one thing, then physical and logico-mathematical abilities, and then social transmission. These are all very common. They appear to be very common, but when Piaget gave it at the nearly 100 years ago, at that time, these researches were only at the very preliminary stage, and he did very pioneering work also. Very interesting thing is that he started his research with his grandchildren and children and grandchildren. So he started observing his children first, then he observed his grandchildren. He observed other people also, but he started with his own children and grandchildren and arrived at this inferences. Piaget, we can just summarize Piaget's theories like this. The learner is actively involved in the process of learning and assimilation of new concepts into existing mental model. This is important. When some visitor is coming, visitor, particularly a child, comes to a science center, he comes with some ideas, so he assimilates the new concepts into his existing mental models. Accommodation of mental models to fit new concepts. Then the reverse thing also happens, that he accommodates his mental models in such a way that he generates a new concept. Second one is John Dewey. He gave the theory of pragmatism, that all learning is based in experience, but not all experience is educational. You can understand this, very true. And educational experience links to past experience and generates like Piaget only. And means trial and error. Our fun science exhibits are by reflection and suspension of judgment, by trial and error. This is another way of telling that man learns through trial and error. And learning is purposeful. Man full knowledge. So this is also very important. Unless the knowledge is useful. Now, after at the age of 60, if I now start studying quantum field theory, maybe first 1 month I will have some enthusiasm. After that, I will give up because there is no purpose. Now, the third most influential thinker is Lev Vygotsky. His theory is called Scio-Cultural learning, that all higher mental functions start in social plane. I mean, society's role is very important. You can understand why he gave this theory. He was born, or maybe he was brought up in a country called Soviet Union, which was a socialist country. And as a policy, the Soviet Union laid much importance on the role of the society in education, in learning, and everything, in scientific research. So he started thinking in that way, and he discovered that the role of society is very important in our learning. So learning by use of cultural tools. Cultural tools is also important, because when a child learns, an Indian child will not learn in the same way as an American child. I will give you one example, very interesting example, which I have personally experienced. Any Indian child can very quickly add or subtract or multiply numbers mentally. Is anybody saying anything? Is anybody saying anything?
No, you can continue, sir.
Okay. But if you go to the West, say Europe or America, you will say they are not capable of doing all this addition, multiplication, division mentally as quickly as Indian children. We have a long cultural tradition of mental mathematics. So maybe genetically we have inherited this thing. And we can remember very well the multiplication tables. You go to America, go to Europe, they will always try to use the calculator, which we can easily do. Even if you go to market, if you purchase 2 kilos of potato, 1 kilo of onion, 500 grams of bhindi, and all these things, 7-8 different kinds of things. If you ask the sabji wala how much I have to pay, he will immediately tell you, you pay me 150 rupees or 157 rupees, like that. So, and they are correct also. So this mental mathematical abilities is that. So this was noticed by Vygotsky. So according to him, that learning cultural tools is very important. The language, the numbers, the cultural practices. And third one is that social interaction promotes thinking skill, planning skill, internalization of conversation. So social interaction is very important. And the zone of proximal development. I will come to what is zone of proximal development next, afterwards. The fourth one is Jerome Bruner. He is also an American educationist and psychologist. He gave a theory called scaffolding. So according to him, learning occurs in stages as a child moves up the ladder of learning. This is very common. We have read it in the characteristics of learning. And this is important. This is again the scaffolding and zone of proximal development. These are very similar. Outside intervention helps him in climbing up the ladder. Suppose a child understands an exhibit maybe 80%, 20% he is not understanding. So if his parents or elders or any other visitors or his teachers, they can help him, they can just push him up the ladder a little bit so that his learning is complete. So this is called scaffolding. Vygotsky also said the zone of proximal development. These two are almost similar thing. And the fifth one and the last one we are talking about, the J.P. Gilford theory of intelligence and creativity. He is also American. According to Gilford's structure of intellect, he gave in 1955 that he told that an individual's performance on intelligence tests can be traced back to the underlying mental ability or factors of intelligence. What are the factors of intelligence? He gave 180 different factors, intellectual abilities. There, he organized them along 3 orthogonal coordinate systems on 3 dimensions: operations, content, and products. We are not going into detail, but one important thing we need to tell here, that intelligence and creativity are not same. That all intelligent people are not creative, but all creative people must be intelligent. Otherwise, your creativity will not be very useful. If you are not intelligent, you will not be able to fulfill the potential, creative potential. So these two things are too important, but these are not same thing. Sometimes we confuse between intelligence and creativity. Now we have talked about the Piaget, Dewey, and Vygotsky. Their theories, this Piaget's theory, Dewey's theory, and Vygotsky's theory, we can merge them into constructivism. So what is constructivism? That how people construct their own knowledge. In a science center, we do not tell everything very explicitly to the visitor. An exhibit gives some idea. We present a very short write-up, very short narration. From there, or from 1 or 2 or 3 exhibits, or from a total gallery, a visitor can construct his knowledge. So this is called constructivism. And all these 3 educationists or educational psychologists, Piaget, Dewey, and Vygotsky, what they said is basically constructivism. Now, what are the constructivism? Learning occurs when people reconstruct meaning and understanding. You see an exhibit and it does not result into learning. You reconstruct the meaning and understanding in your mind. Learning is a process of active engagement with experience. Simple experience or simple engagement does not result into learning. So you need to actively engage with the exhibit, and the experience you gain from your active engagement, that will be translated into learning. The third one, which was given by John Falk. John Falk is a very renowned museum researcher of Oregon Science Museum and Oregon University of Oregon in USA. So what he has given, that learning is a whole, not a part. A whole that only be understood by trying to situate any given learning experience within a larger framework of a person's total life. This is a complicated statement. I'm just leaving it to you for understanding. Now, zone of proximal development we have already discussed. It aids a potential learner to become a learner with a little help from outside. And learning in Science Museum is a social process. When I am not able to understand how an exhibit to be operated, I observe the other visitors, how they are operating, then I learn how to operate it. So learning in science museums is a social process. This is very important. Now, what are the advantages of social process? Family activities. So science museum visit is a family, sometimes it is a family activity. It gives a chance for family learning. So everybody learns together in a family when they visit a science museum or a science center. And there is scope for frequent talk, perceptual, conceptual, connecting, strategic, affective. I will tell what is affective. The immediate solution seeking. A child immediately seeks a solution. How does it work, father? How does it work, grandfather? So they immediately ask solution. This is possible only because science museum visit is a social process. Another is what I was just talking that learning through observing and mimicking adult activities, often without explicit educational intention. Learners both participate in and help to shape community practices. Broader collective learning. It is not only family learning, it is a broader collective learning. Means many visitors together they learn something. It is possible in science shows. It is possible even in galleries or exhibitions also. Now, there are different kinds of visitors. This is researchers have identified them. I do not have many more slides left. Just I will try to finish as much as possible. One kind of explorer, facilitator, experience seeker, professional or hobbyists, and rechargers. So this is explorer. I come here primarily because it interests me and I like it. This is a photograph from Science City. I come here primarily because it will satisfy other people's needs. I come here, this is experience seeker, mostly family visitors. I come here primarily because it is an attraction or thing to do in this community, its reputation, and also the place where they are visiting, its reputation. Science City, Kolkata has a reputation. In Calicut, the Regional Science Center and Planetarium has a reputation. That is why people come there. So they are the experience seeker. Other one is the professional and hobbies. I come here primarily because it relates to my work or is something I actively pursue as a hobby. In fact, this is a dream for all science museum professionals. When people will come to science museums and science centers for their professional needs and for hobbies, the number of such people visitor is definitely very few, but it will be a great honor for science museums in India when the people will start coming in large numbers because of their professional need and hobby to science museums. Another is just for recharging themselves, motivated by reverential or restorative experience, just to recharge themselves. Another learning theory was given by Cobb and McCarthy. They have identified from the last few slides, this is summarized here, they have identified 4 different kinds of learning styles. One is the dynamic learner. Dynamic learner, what does the dynamic learner do? The hands-on learning. He prefers hands-on learning. He prefers learning by trial and error, self-discovery, talking with other people. They are the dynamic learner. An imaginative learner. What is the imaginative learner doing? Seeking personal meaning, looking at things from different points of view. They're actually creative and imaginative. Watching, listening, and sharing ideas, learning about people and culture. The third one is the problem solver, solving problems, resents being given answers, knowing how things work, hands-on learning, testing theories. They are somewhat like dynamic learner, but they're basically problem solver. Another is the analytical learner, thinking through ideas, seeking facts, knowing with experts, knowing what experts think, listening and thinking. They have something in common with the imaginative learner, but they are one step ahead of the imaginative learner. No, another is the Gardner. Gardner is also very famous. Gardner's multiple learning theories are there. Multiple, sometimes it is called learning gateways also. He has other kinds of theories. Basically, he has identified different people that different people prefer different approaches to learning. Some people prefer narrative, story-based learning. Some people prefer quantitative. Some people aesthetic, then foundational, philosophical, and experiential. This you can relate to Kobe, McCarthy, these 4 types of learners. So these are the purposes. Some people may have one purpose, some people may have more than one purpose. And sometimes some people may not have any purpose, just for recharging they can come. So what is the final model of learning? So we can identify 5 different learning types. One is the cognitive. I will explain each of these things. Cognitive, affective, personal, physical, and socio-cultural. We have already talked about all these things, but then we'll go to see what are all these 5 different things. Cognitive is the reinforcing prior knowledge through repetition, direct concrete experience, setting prior knowledge into context, applying knowledge in the real world. And so they are relating to theory of practice. So they reinforce their own knowledge. What is affective? Affective learning is challenging beliefs and values, making people more aware of other people's point of view. So affective learning develops scientific temper. Then personal. Personal is different from cognitive. Personal learning inspiring interest, increasing self-confidence, increased awareness of what you can do. So it promotes scientific awareness. What is physical? Practicing or gaining skill, thinking skill, exploration, observation, measurement, classicals, the storytelling, artists. These are the something what people do in the fun science galleries or interactive galleries. So physical learning are applied in science museums, in the hands-on galleries, and in the creative programs. Like we have a lot of creative educational, creativity promoting educational programs. So that is the physical kind of learning. And then socio-cultural learning, the teamwork, the communication, cooperation. These are the social skills which science museums also promote. So what is the final model? Final model is the contextual model of science museum learning, which was given by John Falk, about whom we have talked about, and Lynn Dyer-King is Mrs. John Falk actually. Both of them work in University of Oregon and Oregon Science Museum. So summarizing all these things, they have given a contextual model of science museum learning, that in a science museum, there occurs 3 different kinds of learning. One is the personal learning. In personal learning, you have the what we have already discussed about the personal learning, cognitive learning, as well as affective learning. All these 3 kinds of learning he has summarized into personal learning. Then there is a physical learning. Physical learning is what you learn by interacting with the exhibits, the hands-on learning. So it is not a cognitive or your mental learning, but it is a skill development learning. So how to operate, how to perform an experiment, how to operate an exhibit. So this is physical learning. And then socio-cultural learning. We have explained it many times that a visitor interacts with his or her family members. A visitor interacts with the museum educators. A visitor interacts with the other visitors. So socio-cultural learning occurs. So this is, and finally the intersecting point is the learning in science museum, what a visitor takes home. That is learning in science museums, which is an intersection of personal, physical, and socio-cultural context. So I think this is all that. Finally, what is the conclusion? So the conclusion of this entire discussion is that what is learning in science museum? Because our topic was learning in science museums. So learning in science museum is a non-formal kind of science learning. It is also a free choice learning where there is no restriction of about the visitors' age or visitors' educational qualification, eligibility, time, So it is a free choice, and pace and when he will come, what he will see. So everything depends on the visitor's own decision. So it's a free choice learning. Then it is an active learning. So in the science museum, it is not a cinema where you just simply sit and watch the cinema. So it is an active learning. You interact with the exhibits, you interact with the museum educators, you sometimes in a different kind of immersive shows, you participate in that one. And in science museum, you learn in different contexts. It is not just from the book. You learn by your cognitive way, in your personal way. You learn from physical interaction with the exhibits. You learn from your social interaction with other visitors or museum people. And what does the science museum learning do? It promotes intellectual, physical, and social skills. And also it promotes scientific awareness, scientific temper, and creativity. And finally, science museum learning is always inspirational. It is sometimes, it has a life-changing impact. In fact, though in our country, the history of science museum is not very long, but in Europe and in the USA, there are many science museums which are more than a century old. So many people have reported, many people when they become famous, many of them have told that their first interest in science or engineering or medical science or any such kind of things, science and technology related topics, they were ignited from their childhood visit to science museums. So thank you very much for listening patiently to me. So now we have some 5-10 minutes time. If there is any question, I can just give the reply.
Thank you very much for your nicely structured presentation. It's thought-provoking and intense. My questions from the audience. If you have any, you may kindly type it into the chat box, or you may unmute yourself and put forward the question. We request Sanal sir, you may kindly to switch off the presentation so that they can see you and interact with you.
Okay. Now, am I visible?
Yes, you are.
Yes. Oh, sir. KG Kumar, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Sanya. How are you?
I'm seeing you after many days. Not seeing you, just seeing you.
You're not seeing me, you're only hearing me.
Hearing you.
Yes.
Okay. How are you, sir?
I am good, and I'm very happy. It was a beautiful presentation, what you did. Rather, I was chatting through WhatsApp with Manas that it's a beautiful presentation. Probably we should preserve this.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
One of the things, it's not a question.
Yes,
I mean, as you covered, the learning through science museums.
Yes, sir.
We have so many variety of visitors who come. Different groups come.
Yes.
And the learning system also, as you are in your conclusion, you gave that 7-8 points.
Yes.
That learning happens at different levels, at different in different mediums.
Yes.
Probably that is the reason we are not able to quantify the learning which is coming out from the science museums.
Yes, quantification is not possible. No, it is not possible.
Yeah, it is not possible.
Yes.
And maybe that is one of the reasons that in our country's context, we are not able to say so strongly. Like, I know many people, they have told that their first visit to Birla Museum and then they got inspired.
Yes.
The first visit to Vishwasharaya Museum, they got inspired.
Yes.
When we were doing our Golden Jubilee, lots of people came and told.
Achha. Okay.
But probably this non-quantification only has not taken the science museum into a very strong foray. That's what I felt.
Okay.
And I think that's what all of us should be doing, to see that we are well connected not only to the society but to the educational institutions, not the schools. I'm talking about research institutions like Miriakan. They are known for what? Because they are directly connected to the scientists.
Okay.
we did some effort. I think even now NCSM is doing those type of works.
Yes, yes. But I can tell you one thing, that in the recent draft Science, Technology and Innovation Policy of Government of India, now NCSM's role and importance have been very importantly mentioned there. So what NCSM will do, and this non-formal science education through science museums under NCSM, what role they will play, it is prominently given in that one.
I know that was the report which Professor Kasturi Rangan was making, no?
Yes, yes, yes.
And then I had interaction with him just before I was leaving NCSM, and then we had given him some write-ups on that.
Okay,
After that, I moved out of NCSM. Still, the love continues.
Okay, thank you, sir. It will continue.
It will
continue.
Sure. Very nice, very nice. Good talk.
Thank you, sir.
Manas ji.
Manas.
Well, any more questions? Well, till others can figure out a few things, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I'm a little bit on the practical implementation side for my inclination. So I'd ask, in several places I have seen in many of the education programs, people only demonstrate a few things. It's good, it's fun, but there are no explanations offered. There's no questions asked, as if we always are pleasure-seeking people who are interacting with. Do you think that this is the right way to go, and this should be the future, where we just lay out some things which are bedazzling rather, and which attract some people, but ultimately doesn't offer any explanation at all?
No, that is not the correct way, actually. That is not the correct way. Fun is one way of attracting people, that is true, but fun is not the only way to provide an effective science learning. That is already, you can understand from my lecture also. Explanation is required, but only one problem is there, that again, that learning depends on prior knowledge and interest. So we get a lot of visitors without any prior knowledge and without any interest also. So that is a problem why people don't interact with the presenter. And then we have a culture of not asking question to the teacher. That is prevalent in all schools, colleges, and most of the schools, colleges, and university. You will find that in India, we have a culture of not asking question to the teacher. And many teachers don't like also. That's a big problem. But in the Western context, they have a culture of asking even silly questions, and teachers don't. Teachers also appreciate such questions, even if it is a silly question, and they always reply to those type of questions.
Thank you very much. In Calicut, we face one situation, and we quite indulge in it. That is, every year about 70 to 80 students, they come to us for doing their BSc or MSc or BE final year projects.
Yes.
And we try to help them out in actually executing the project here itself. We also evaluate them, which goes back to their respective institutions, and they carry that marking. Do you think that this is one example wherein people are turning to the Science Center for their professional needs, and this is something that should be encouraged?
Yeah, this must be encouraged. In fact, we have a shortcoming in NCSM that our relation with the formal educational institutions and formal educational system is very limited. So if we can establish a very organic link with the formal educational system to schools, we have to some extent, to the colleges and universities or engineering colleges, medical colleges, and if they visit science centers for their academic needs and for their professional needs, that is always welcome. That is always welcome.
Yes, and that is another point that I'd like to ask, that there is a general perception that the Science Center learning is only happening at a very rudimentary level, where it cannot go beyond mostly the school levels.
No, that is not true, because our temporary exhibitions and traveling exhibitions, we always choose themes of contemporary scientific relevance, scientific importance and scientific relevance, where many times we discuss a lot of very contemporary issues also. But yes, in science museum, exhibits are not textbooks. So you cannot write pages after pages of equations and deductions and all these things. You have to remain in a popular level, if not a rudimentary level. So it should be understandable, because we have our visitor spectrum is very wide. You cannot restrict an exhibition or a gallery to a particular group of visitors, because it is a free choice learning. You have to allow everybody. And when you are allowing everybody, then your target should be that that as many as people should be catered to. That is important. But it is not true that science museums restrict themselves to rudimentary. In fact, I have just, Manoj, I have another observation. We have many fun science exhibits which actually explain very complicated physics. I'm just giving you an example. For example, our planetary motion. We have shown that so many physical phenomena can be explained with that exhibit. Even general theory of relativity can be demonstrated in a different one, not demonstrated, simulated. That how the precision of the orbit happens, just like the precision of the orbit of Mercury. And all these things can be shown because it actually simulates the gravitational field. Then our this guitar exhibit, the strings, you can just plug the string and release them, and in the background the drum rotates. So it is a wonderful demonstration of Fourier analysis of waveforms. Nobody knows. And another very simple and very common example is that our transfer of momentum exhibit with the Newton cradle. It is always said that it is transfer of momentum, but it is not transfer of momentum. It is a wonderful demonstration of simultaneous conservation of momentum and energy in an elastic collision. Now, our people should know it, and it is the responsibility of our curators to prepare the proper write-up and educate the younger curators and the education staff to explain, because we have the basic education. Everybody, if trained or taught, I think our people will understand this thing, but nobody has ever told them this.
No,
another example is that the so-called the compound pendulum. You know the story.
Yeah.
It is not a compound pendulum. It is basically a superposition of two simple harmonic motions. Compound pendulum is something very different. So such mistakes are also there. So we should rectify these things, and then only people will appreciate our contribution.
No, my question was a little different. I actually did not mean to say that we restrict ourselves in presenting only rudimentary things. I tried to say that the visitors think that whatever we do are mainly targeted towards the kids or the junior level people. How to break that myth that it is not true?
No, it will take time, and it will require your persistent effort. For maybe after 10 years, 15 years of persistent effort, this will start changing. It will not change in one day, because it was built upon for in last. Sir, please, sir.
Yes, sir.
I was listening. It's good that we are talking. See, unfortunately, the picture of the science museums or NCSM has been lagged that it is for schools.
Yes.
That has been the image which has been created all through, right from the time it was conceived.
Yes, sir.
And see, when I was in Gulbarga, I used to give project support to the polytechnic colleges and the engineering colleges there, because that time they did not have even those facilities what we had. Now, over the years, what has happened? Our labs, our hobby centers have remained the same.
Yes.
We did evolve. See, today people are talking something else. When you go to colleges, go to professional colleges. I remember then when I was in VITM, that Niti Meenakshi, they wanted to do a project with us. We could not. The reason was that we also have to evolve with the technology, with the system. And I remember another college here, they wanted that they started a B design course there first. And I'm even today I am a member of their syllabus development committee. So that was the time I told those people that when your design students, they come to the 4th semester or 5th semester, they should work on a project with us in Vishwashrayams. Then what happens, there is an exchange of ideas, because those are young boys, young girls who will have a different set of imagination, and then you get a very good exhibition. We did one such exhibition on mathematics along with TIFR.
Achha.
And उसमें क्या था कि they talked about mathematics but with a very different concept, with a different view. I did another program with one institution called it's a IFA. It's a art institution. They worked on the artifacts of Vishwashraya Museum, and they came out with an exhibition which had an art and science component together. Then it attracts a different group of people.
Yes.
And these type of activities, if we are able to do, there is absolutely no problem that we will change our face very soon. Like आप लोगों ने किया था, Bose Institute के लिए काम किया था. You did something there. When Manas, you will be knowing. I think you were also involved when you were in Calcutta. So when such type of things happen, this has to be given more prominent. Prominence. Yes. That's what I think.
Yes. In fact, all of us know this one. This planetary motion exhibit, the fun science exhibit, it was originally designed by one Nobel laureate.
Exactly.
Collaborating with, I think, your Exploratorium or something, some science museums. So it was originally designed by one Nobel laureate. So we should collaborate with such people. So that will help us change our image.
Yes, sure.
And to both of you, I have another question that, the myth that no sir, you can't escape.
Not me. I am not the speaker. He is the speaker.
But you are also here as an expert. You joined it. So my question is that, like the myth we carry with us that we are for the kids, there is another myth among us that we have to make everything very general. We never make exhibitions or exhibits or galleries even keeping a particular group in mind, a particular type, a particular knowledge level. So do you think in doing so, actually we are precipitating down to the lowest common minimum?
Diluting. We are diluting.
Using the plot altogether.
No, that is what I have already told, that because learning depends on some prior knowledge. So when we plan one exhibition or one gallery, we must keep one particular target group in mind. There is nothing called general public. General public has no definition, and general public cannot have any common minimum factor also. So target group is always there. Like children's gallery. Suppose you are developing one exhibition on nanotechnology. So do you think that one rickshaw puller will come and appreciate that thing?
You need a prerequisite level of education.
Yes, education and background is required.
But then again, coming back to what Manas has asked. Now, when we do a gallery or an exhibition, I won't say exhibition. Normally, again, it gets restricted. Like you need to have a basic level of education. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to the visitors. But when we make a gallery, for example, when we did biotechnology,
yes,
that time, since I was curating that, I was thinking that we should have something for everyone. When we talk about general, something for everyone, but still we needed at least one basic level of understanding of why cell kya hota hai. You don't even know that, you will not even be able to enter biotechnology. So that's why we started with that, and then we had a lot of generic exhibits which was interesting to people. So,
do you think that some kind of tagging will help us? Should we promote a few facilities for a particular target group?
We should do that. We should do that. Otherwise, when we say that we want to reach the professional institutions, you have to make something exclusively for that group.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, we have a question from our visitors, and one of our viewers, he is asking a question. I'll just modify a little bit. He asks that are there any difference between the learning pattern of common learners and the scholars, and are there methods to address that? And he also asks along with it, then if we find that they are two different things, then what are the best methods to follow? What should be the best learning model? Do you have to tune it towards a particular group like that?
Look, there are actually two differences between a common learner and a scholar. That one difference is the existence or non-existence of prior knowledge. Second one, the scholar, he is trained in analytical thinking and the research methodology and all these things. So his way of learning, his way of looking at the things will be very different. So now what was the second part of the question? So which one is the best? Which one of the best is has no meaning. It depends on what is your background. What is your background? Now, I'm giving you just one example. When it comes to physics, I try to depend on my prior knowledge. When it comes to some computer programming and all these things, I depend on what my computer science colleagues just tell me. Just simply I accept that thing because I cannot go much deeper into that one. So that is my limitation.
Sir,
Yeah, please.
yeah. Sir, I have one question.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, you said that we require prior knowledge, some type of prior knowledge for appreciating any gallery or any exhibit in a science museum.
Yes.
But again, simultaneously, we propagate the concept of inclusiveness in the museum, where we try to bring in all cross-section of the people to the science museum. But now, if we take...
you mean that whether these two are contradictory?
Contradictory, yeah.
They're not contradictory because our objective is to have something for everybody. Not to have everything for everybody. That is not possible. To have something for everybody. That is why we have varieties of things. Different kinds of galleries, science park, then different kinds of science shows, planetarium, innovation hub, creative ability center, Tara Mandal, so many things. So there should be something for everybody. Not everything for everybody is not possible. So inclusiveness will come from that one. It is not possible for everybody to go to a science center and learn everything. That is not possible. But only thing that when somebody comes to a science center, there should be something for him or her. So that will ensure inclusiveness.
Now, these theories of learning, it also arouses another question in my mind that many of our exhibits, which depend upon switch press kind of and touch screen kind of interactivity, are they really making any connection at the cerebral level? Are they really contributing to learning, or it's...
No, I will. That will require another lecture. In fact, I have another lecture how these theories are applied to our different exhibits in NCSF. Oh, that is another lecture in any other. Maybe next year I will give this lecture.
No, not next year. Since we are doing this year-long celebration towards...
Okay, sometime later I will give this lecture. How our exhibits are directly connected to the different learning theories. So that is also possible. In fact, we discussed this thing during our MS course. So myself, under Mr. Rautela, we prepared some note about this thing. We listed something that how different exhibits are related to different scientific these learning theories. And most of our exhibits can be related to some kinds of learning theories.
Okay, so we'll look forward to that sometimes in future, maybe this year some month. We come to the end of this program. I don't think there is any other question. We don't have any. So we'll end this program. It's wonderful, sir, that you came into our channel and our program and spent so much of time. Thank you very much. We'll look forward to another lecture from you. And Kumar sir, we also thank you. We thank all the viewers, whoever have come here, and thank you very much. So for the time being, it's goodbye. We'll come back with the next session of panel discussion at its scheduled time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.